Peaceful.
Shalom.
Hey, Kevin.
Madam Clerk, are we ready? Super duper. Good morning. It is 9 a.m. on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, and I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners to order. For the record, I am Chairman Luke Ahmet, and Commissioners Asia Williams and Stephen Bradshaw are also present. Please rise for our invocation with Mrs. Janine Shepherd.
Let's pray. Lord, we take this time to pause and give you glory, Lord, for all that you have done and all that you will do in our county. We see your hand at work and we want to praise you for all you are doing. Your word talks about your will being done on earth as it is in heaven. We want Sandpoint and Bonner County to be as it is in heaven, bringing heaven to earth, Lord. That's what we want. We see your hand in the situation with the Cedar Street Bridge, Lord, the purchase of the bridge and filling it with more businesses, bringing hope and life back to the bridge. You have taken a rough situation and transformed it for your glory. We thank you for your faithfulness to us, and we also thank you for the faithfulness of those who have been your hands and feet at the bridge. We see you also, Lord, in the revival happening with the youth of Sandpoint, that 10 different churches' youth groups, over 150 kids, are meeting together each month to pray, worship, learn, and grow in you. You have lit a fire, and the faithful people of God are stoking the flame. Help it to continue to burn bright for your glory. We see your glory in the National Day of Prayer event last week at Farman Park, where people of God from all over the county came together with no political agenda, but to praise you, Heavenly Father, and pray to you. We want the glory to be yours. This is only a small part of what you're doing, but we want to praise you and thank you. We thank you for the commissioners and all the elected officials and ask that your hand be upon this meeting. Bless them, Lord. Bless each one and bring heaven to earth in their lives. In Bonner County as it is in heaven, Lord. Let it begin right here, right now, with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comments or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject the person being removed to criminal prosecution according to law. The purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issues or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. The board will not engage in dialogue with the presenter during this session, but rather may choose to schedule the presenter's topic for board consideration at a future business meeting. Questions may be directed to individual board members for the purpose of clarifying issues or to obtain additional information for the purpose of scheduling the matter for a future business meeting. However, no action will be taken on any issue or concern brought to the board's attention during this session. The chair will not entertain, under any circumstances, comments derogatory in nature toward any board member, staff member, elected official, or member of the public. This weekly meeting is designated for general external business of the board, including, but not limited to, consideration of claims, consideration and approval of minute records, consideration and approval of proposed ordinances, review of license applications, adoption of necessary resolutions, to conduct public hearings, conduct such other business as it may schedule, to conduct such business as may be required by Idaho code. On a side note, it has been brought to my attention by the clerk that early voting has started downstairs, so this is a polling place, which means that electioneering of any kind within this building is not appropriate. So, and as our public comment section, it is a limited public forum. We are bound to honor all of those rules and laws in this case. Our first agendized item today is to adopt the order of agenda.
I make a motion to remove items 1 and 2, presence of Sergeant of Arms and clerk being present in the meeting room, as these have been discussed and decided at earlier meetings.
Is there a second? I will step down from the chair and second the motion. There is a motion on the floor to remove the decision regarding the Sergeant at Arms and the clerk at the meeting. Deliberation.
So the first item is a request from the members of the public to address the Sergeant at Arms presence, although there isn't an official Sergeant at Arms, the appearance. And so I am going to use Ordinance 1201 subsection D that says an agendized item during deliberation on an agendized item that any board member may ask questions of anybody present. And I would ask that the individual that requested this item to be on the agenda argue for why they wanted to be on the agenda for the actual discussion. So that was you.
No, that is not going to happen, Commissioner Williams, because the chair will preside at the meeting, and on 7/18/23.
Commissioner Ahmet, I'm
Thank you.
using the rule, so I'm
And
not.
as the chair, I'm going to make a ruling on that, and
It's
you have
not a
been
rule.
overruled.
That's not a, this isn't court, okay?
You're right, this is a board meeting. Is there
And-
any further deliberation on the motion on the floor? The motion on the floor is to remove items 1 and 2.
And so it was first and second, and so I provided 1201, and it says the board may deliberate on the agendized item, and in doing so may call on anybody that's present. So I am actually doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. You seem very frustrated over the process, but I'm actually following the ordinance.
No, I'm not frustrated at all, but in addition to that, there was also the standing rules, Commissioner, which there's supposed to be a memorandum so that it gives not only the board the opportunity to be able to understand what someone is trying to do, but it gives the general members of the public that opportunity. And it appears that when you put this on there, you neglected to do so. Every other agendized item today that we are going to consider follows those rules twofold for 2 reasons. And the reasons are, 1, so that the board actually has the time, as we are reading these items, to try to get an understanding when they're posted on Friday, so then you can go and you can ask questions. And the second is so that the general public has the same opportunity to understand the business that the board is considering. And when that step is forgotten, I'll be kind, or purposefully ignored, what we have is we have a lack of transparency, which I find to be so troubling, and it's just disheartening. And I'm just not.
So that's not what's happening. Somebody, a
It's what
community member brought forward a request for an item to be discussed. You don't need a memo to discuss something. So there is no memo present because we don't know what the community member actually wants. So the process of the business meeting says public comment is intended for people to bring up their issues and concerns and to bring forward issues that they would like to see on an agenda. So Mr. Kramer requested an item on the agenda. I can't write a memo about what he desires because we have not heard what he desires. It was part of a public comment. And as you point out, in public comment, the board is not having a discussion or decision about what the individual wants. They are simply putting it on the agenda. So in spite of what you just said, I actually did follow all of the requirements. He brought forward a request. I put it on the agenda. I don't know whether there is an action item, but if you read, I put action, discussion, decision. I don't know. And so what you're doing is just ignoring somebody's desire, and it's the public who wants to have the discussion. It isn't Asia, so I don't know. And so it's reasonable for the Board of Commissioners to hear the public's question so that we know, is there a decision that needs to be made? Because last week, when he brought it up, we were specifically telling the public, we can't make any decision. So you're right, I didn't forget, and I didn't intentionally not do something. I don't know what to write because I don't know the issue because the board did not hear the issue. So it's reasonable to at least hear it before you just remove it. It doesn't give good optics to the community that on one end, you're literally trying to make it seem like I'm not following a rule when it is 100% the community's right to ask us to agendize an item. And as I pointed out by putting the rule there, I can call on the individual, that's anybody in this room, and ask them to explain it. And so that's what I'm asking to do before the two of you make a decision to remove the item. And I will remind you that as you start with your standing rules of decorum and all that stuff, you're not presenting yourself in that way, because I'm not being aggressive with you. I'm not having a tone with you. I am just asking that we allow the community member who wanted this item, who I called on, which is in line with 1201, to give a discussion as what their issue was. There is no memo. I'm asking you guys not to remove that. How does the public feel part of our business if the two of you decide without hearing it? Because none of us have heard this person's issue on this item. We haven't. So I'm asking you guys not to do that. So barring that, I don't think I'm going to be able to get past the issue of allowing the public their rightful place to speak about their agenda item. I'm going to go on number 2. We didn't actually discuss this. And the reason I put this on the agenda is I don't like the interactions with this board. It doesn't look good for the county. If you recall last week, I said very kindly, I think we need to vote on consent agenda. And then the two of you ping-ponged back and forth over, well, we'll do it again. And it was a laughing stock. I went back and watched the tape. We didn't vote on the consent agenda. I submitted it. It shouldn't be that I have to argue to follow the rules of clerking the meeting. Clerking the meeting is a clerk function. I'm not saying any individual specific person. I'm just saying a clerk should be present. There have been complaints about when we are receiving items that people want as their information to turn in. There have been complaints made also, and these were made directly to Lewis Marshall, over the board is pressing stop and play on the tape player when we're downstairs, and they asked, why is the board doing that? All my request here is that a clerk, whether it's the county clerk's function, if he delegates that to a deputy, that's fine. I'm just wanting someone in the meeting so that remove any concern over what's happening with the meeting. I don't want negative interaction about how the meeting is processed. I don't feel that it's for me to say, hey, you guys, I don't want to have, there's no reason to have disagreement, because clearly that's inherent in this board, as we're witnessing now. So I'm just asking, and the clerk is here now, so maybe it's a moot point. Maybe the clerk is saying, okay, we can be in the meeting now. I don't know. But it isn't reasonable to just remove it. And I'll remind you too, you have both been advised that it isn't really reasonable for you to take items that I place on the agenda off the agenda. It's not reasonable. Just vote the way that you want to vote and not remove it, because you're removing the voice of the people.
That is a direct misrepresentation of what our legal counsel said.
Okay, Bill Wilson,
and
it should be on the line because you
He's not.
required that.
I believe he's not, because I was of the impression that he is actually at home quite ill. Is there any further deliberation?
I have none.
Roll call vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
The motion carries, so let's just to cross our Ts and dot our Is. So I will step down from the chair and move to adopt the order of agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second to adopt the order of agenda as amended. Is there any further deliberation?
I think it's not the right thing to silence the voice of the people by removing items that they place on the agenda. This board has been advised, if you guys don't like the ordinance, that you guys need to change the ordinance. But the public, look at online and look at this room. They're coming to actively participate, and public comment is specifically designed for people to address their issues, their concerns, and to ask us to place items on the agenda. And when that takes place and you two refuse to hear, regardless of whether you agree, when you have the power to just vote it down, that's not reasonable. The people want to have their voice heard. They're not asking for the outcome. They're just asking to be heard. And I think that that is a slap in the face to everybody that takes time to participate in local government. You two continue to push the public out of our meetings. unreasonably, because you could just let us move forward and make a decision.
It appears to me that the public is here, and us following the rules, I mean, I can go right there. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly, which is what we are doing, which is what we will continue to do. And the public is going to have their right to give comment to the Board of Commissioners. And that is how this works. Is there any further deliberation?
There is, because you continually disregard the fact that they get to bring forth issues and concerns and request items to be placed on the agenda. And what has happened over this year and a half is you intentionally ignore the full scope of that ordinance in order to suit you. We are not leaders, we are representative of the people. And it doesn't mean whether or not we agree with what they have to say, but giving them their rightful place in this meeting. And whether you like it or not, public comment says, and place items on the agenda for consideration by the board. What you do when you remove their item is you won't even consider it, which means you're not following the rule. Because thoughtful consideration is deliberation on whatever issue that Mr. Kramer wanted to bring forth, and then you make a vote on it. And you're denying the people their right by trying to say that you're following the rules. If you were following the rules, you would allow this gentleman's item on this agenda, you would deliberate, and you'd make a decision. But you're saying you will not even consider it, and that is what he has a right per that ordinance.
Commissioner, no matter how much you obfuscate your perspective, and there will not be applause in this hearing or in this meeting, that is not how this will be ran. I will tell you that right now today. Is no matter your attempts to obfuscate, everything that we are doing here is in public view. And the board, ma'am, yes, it is. You're looking at, we're here.
The only one who's being
Ma'am?
in public view is Asia
Ma'am,
Williams.
I'm asking you, this is not how the meeting will be ran. This is a Board of County Commissioner meeting. So, with that being said, roll call vote.
No.
Yes?
Yes.
The motion carries. We have, I don't understand why it says an expenditure over 5K for business meetings. We have one from Risk for $700, which by my math is not over.
There's 7 of them. That'd be 4,900.
It's my understanding that's the total.
Yeah, no, it'd be per person, I think. No, that'd be the total.
That's the total.
Yeah,
It's in there. So but we'll share that it's $700
yeah, $700 for bond for the,
for the bonds for the Fair Board members.
yeah. Falls short of 5,000, but
It
there it
does.
is.
So our next agendized item
Which is
is the consent agenda.
Okay, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
the motion carries. Our next agendized item is for Prosecutor Bill Wilson, who is at home, so I'm going to read it, and it's from the prosecutor, so I'm going to say that it has been approved by legal. The attorneys in the Bonner County Prosecutor's Office use an online legal database called Westlaw to conduct research. This is a fundamental tool for modern legal practice. Our current contract with Westlaw is comprised of certain modules that we pay for a la carte. An annual review of the usage data for the office has revealed that some of the modules are not being utilized enough to justify their cost. As such, the prosecutor's office now seeks approval of an amended contract with Westlaw that will lessen our license fees by roughly $2,000 per month.
Beautiful. Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the amended Westlaw contract as presented and for the chairman to sign the contract administratively.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation?
We saved money.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
the motion carries. Our next agendized items are with the airport and Mr. Dave Shuck. Dave, are you out there?
I am, Commissioners. Thank you for your time today. I have 2 items for you. They are actually the same issue, but they relate to 2 different leases at Sandpoint Airport. So you can That's why there are two items essentially dealing with the same issue. It's MacGyver Aviation Lease Article 5, Section 5.1, Extension Request on Lot 32 at Sandpoint Airport. MacGyver Aviation is requesting an additional extension to the deadlines for construction of improvements on Lot 32 at Sandpoint Airport. Article 5, Section 5.1 of the lease requires the lessee to complete construction of any improvements no later than 48 months of lease execution. Failure to do so constitutes abandonment as defined in Article 9, Section 9.1D. Section 9.1D allows the Bonner County Board of Commissioners to approve a different time in writing. On July 12th, 2022, the Commissioners extended the construction of improvements deadline to July 12th, 2024. MacGyver Aviation is requesting an additional extension to October 1st, 2024.
Do you recommend that we do this, sir?
Commissioners, I'm torn on this. Not because of lack of passion and dedication on the part of the lessee. My concern is that there's a very tight time frame between now and October 21st October 1st from a construction standpoint. And at this point, the lessee will be putting substantial sums of money into labor and construction materials. Is not met on October 1st would result in default through the abandonment clause. And that would be a significant financial impact to the lessee or commissioners to enact the abandonment clause. I've spoken with the lessee at length over the last 6 years regarding this project. And as I say, he's dedicated to it and passionate about it. I'm just concerned about the ability, basically the logistical ability, to accomplish the construction requirements and the certificate of occupancy by October 1st this year. Almost anything that happens, whether it's supply chain issue or weather or contractor schedules, would put that in jeopardy. And the concern I have is the funds that the lessee would have expended and what happens with those if the commissioners on October 1st decide to enforce the abandonment clause. There is a representative from MacGyver Aviation in the audience today, and he may be able to you about that if you desire.
Now, I would love for some information on this, sir. If you'd come to the microphone and say who you are for the record and then give us some information.
Morning. Thank you for your time, Commissioners. Appreciate it. Ron Fall, MacGyver Aviation. Yeah, it's been difficult to pull all this together. And yeah, that 1 October deadline is tight. We've dealt with contractors and things of that nature, and it's been pretty difficult. But we're pretty comfortable that we can meet that 1 October deadline. So initially we had asked for an adjustment to that time frame. The commissioners had granted us 24 months originally in the July 12th meeting. And when we've just probably, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months ago, realized that 24 months was actually only 21 months or so total time. And so it kind of put us in a crunch. Family, life, everything just kind of overwhelming at that time. We did not realize that it was not full 24 months. So appreciate you guys considering the extension on that. You know, normally the build year, we could go to December, and that would be appreciated. Not necessarily what Dave, the airport manager, has asked for, but that would be most beneficial for us to get this done. We're ready to start this project as soon as we get the approval from you to proceed. So that's part of our lease agreement with that. And so we appreciate your consideration for that.
Dave, can you provide the last date possible to be in line with this statute for an extension? Is it October or is it December?
It's October 1. The request by the lessee, Mr. Fall, is to extend the current deadline to October 1, 2024.
Has it ever happened that you go beyond that statute?
Statute or
There is no precedent.
Article 5, Section 5.1 requires that 48. Has it ever gone beyond? Is there a negative of going beyond? Because on one, it's kind of twofold. One, Dave is being overly cautious of you guys wasting your money and not completing it on time, which has a dual problem of if the county had to enact an abandonment, it doesn't look good on the county to have to do that either. So in order, if the project and desire is reasonable, what is a reasonable decision from your view to accomplish what's needed in this regard, Dave? If it's only that you can do it on October 1, then the risk is all on your company, if you guys want to take that risk, knowing that what Dave's concern is. But is there an option for anything greater, or would it be something that's unprecedented and legal should give advice on?
No, the commissioners have three options here. They can approve the request as stated, which is to October 1st. That's what the lessee asked for. They can deny the request, or they can approve the request for a different duration. So those are the three options that you have in this regard. In terms of the enacting the abandonment clause, yes, that's not a good look for the county to do that, especially when there's significant investment involved that the lessee would be giving up. We have not run into this in my 15 years here, and I've overseen probably 30, 35 hangars built that are combined airports. We have not run into this in the past. So there would be some consultation with legal required. I did talk to our outside counsel regarding this, and his advice was it would be best if the lessee could complete his improvements. The lessee is at this meeting asking for a different duration. You do have that in your power to grant that. And as far as what is the harm, you allow a further extension. There's no, in practical terms, there's no real harm to the county, because the whole goal of leasing land here is so that someone can build the improvements. And in this case, the improvements would be built. It would just take longer than the contractual obligations. Harm to the county would be precedent in terms of allowing deadlines to pass, contractual obligations to pass. And this also doesn't look good for the county, because in this 6 years, there have been, I'm going to say, between 30 and 50 requests from other potential tenants to lease lots at our airports that we do not have available. So when we then allow continuing extensions, performance, when there are other options for the county, that calls into question our integrity in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd be willing to make a motion to amend it, extend it to the end of December. Would that help?
Yes, sir. Thank
Or you
you.
need more than that?
December should be fine, sir.
Okay, I make a motion.
So just make it and just change your date, because we don't even have to amend it, just strike the month.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County agree to extend this deadline to December 31st, 2024.
I'll second the motion to advance it for discussion.
There's a motion and a second. Thank you, Mr. Fall. You can probably take a seat as the board deliberates. What do we
Thank
got?
So for me on this one, I understand what Dave is saying, and it's not just one person. You have a line of people wanting to use this. And For me, I would stick to the October 1st requirement, and if there's an issue, then the individual come back to the board, but with an expectation that it needs to be completed in that time frame, because I understand the concern from Dave as to they would be putting forward the money, but we have to look at the county as a whole, and if there's a line of people wanting to use this and we're extending beyond that 48, I think that should be addressed when we come to October, not in advance, because the expectation is to follow the contract, and then we end up with a little bit of a quandary. And for me, I would want Bonner County Legal to give input on what does that mean to other people in line in us extending it beyond the October 1st, and how do we make that type of decision? Is because for me, if I'm on the side of the public, it's going to be, do I have enough money to achieve a contract that would rise me to the top of an extension beyond 48? If Dave had come back with an answer of, it really doesn't matter, but for this one, I would want to stick to October 1st and then ask our legal for input, but also, because in part, it's up to you guys to really determine whether this is something you want to put your money into, because there's a waiting list to use this spot, and I don't know how I would answer to another taxpayer that came in and said, I've been waiting for this spot, it's not done in the 48 months, so my ticket is due, to be able to use that. I don't think that, for me as a commissioner, I could argue that they were entitled to an additional 2 because it cost X amount of dollars. That's not how I could make the decision. I'd have to come back to the 48 months to make an objective, fair, and balanced decision. Now, if we get to October and I need 10 more days because of a contractor, maybe that's different. But just to extend it outright from the beginning to the end, I don't think that that's fair and equitable across what we're trying to do. And then I don't know how Bonner County could mitigate the line of people waiting to use the sites. And that, for me, I would want legal input on that domino effect that we could be causing. Not that I completely understand the goal is that type of enhancement, but I don't think I would need more information before I could vote to go beyond October 1st at all, with a lot of consideration from legal for me.
So am I hearing you want to amend the main motion?
I'm not amending, I can vote no, and if it fails, then I can put forth a different one. That'll make it cleaner for voting.
Commissioners, if I could clarify, please. This October 1st would constitute 6 years, not the 4 years that are originally agreed to in the lease. The commissioners already extended the 4-year deadline back in 2022. The 4-year, 48-month deadline was October 1st, 2022. So this has already been extended past that. This will be 6 years on October 1st, 2024.
Thank you for that clarification.
That has a pretty big impact for myself.
So Dave, refresh my memory here, but I believe when that originally started, some of the hangup was Sandpoint not getting the infrastructure in, and then there were some hangups in permitting. Of course, we are looking at a 6-year point here, but didn't a lot of the people building out there incur those kind of waiting periods while they was waiting on the city of Sandpoint on a lot of stuff?
No, there was one set of hangars that were delayed 6, and this goes back almost 10 years, because City of Sandpoint had a requirement that there be a public restroom within 500 feet of the hangars that were built, and it took us some time, Bonner County, some time to get that restroom built. So there was an allowance on lot 6 to go past the requirement, the 48-month requirement, but that was due to the county's inability to provide the necessary infrastructure that was required by the city. That's the only time we have allowed hangar to go past its 48-month deadline.
Okay,
Was there any further deliberation on the motion?
I have none.
Hearing none, roll call vote?
No, no.
No.
Yes,
The motion fails.
I move to table this for another day to have a greater discussion with the MacGyver, legal, and Dave in an open forum about what this means and what we could do and what the waiting list looks like. I don't think I have enough information to make that decision. I can put it on the, I can do a special meeting at your convenience of what date would work best.
I will second the motion to table. Is there any deliberation?
I think this,
I think
going
it'd
over,
be simpler just to go back to the October 1st one, but
I think Dave shedding light on the additional years requires us to do a better thorough discussion of this topic, and we don't, Dave is familiar with it. As a member of this board, I do not have the intimate knowledge of this, and I want to do justice by the person requesting it as well as the community members in line. And for me, it requires more information with legal present to weigh in on what decision that needs to be made. Because just because there is a line, I don't know, does that line mean they're in line for the spot that you have, or are they in line in general? I don't know that, and I want to do justice to make sure it's the right decision for everybody involved in all that is whatever this is.
Commissioner, are you going to want to table the second one as well then?
I'm working on just the thing that's before us right now, the aviation
Okay.
lease article.
Yeah, they're identical. There are two lots in consideration here. That's why there are two agenda items. These are two contractual obligations, but they are identical in the issue and in the lessee. So if we're tabling one, we're tabling the other as well.
Oh.
But they have to be two different motions because they're two different items, right?
two separate parcels,
So that's,
yeah.
so I was doing the first one first, and then when we get to the second one, my request would be the same.
So the
So-
motion is to table. Mr. Bradshaw brought back, he thinks it's easier to go to the
October 1st.
October 1st. And then if we start thinking about construction timelines, which we've heard from Dave, that timelines are tight. We've already gone from 4 to 6. I think I'm inclined to offer MacGyver Aviation the October 1st, 2024 date and see what they can do, and we can address it at that time.
Can I have a clarification? I motioned to table. Was there a second to the motion
I
and
did.
discussion? Okay.
Yep. Is there any?
Commissioners, another point of clarification here, because it is a slightly convoluted problem. The request before you is to extend to October 1st, 2024. That's all. You can approve that, deny it, or suggest a different duration. Sounds like what you are leaning towards is approving the request to October 2024, and then in the intervening months, we can establish what might happen if the contractual obligation is not met on October 1st. This would also give the lessee the opportunity to come back to us as things progress or don't, to come back to us in August or September and ask for an additional extension, which you could then consider at that time.
So Dave, what I motioned was not to actually extend it, but to table it and have a discussion with you, MacGyver, and the legal regarding extension in general. That's what I was wanting, because I don't feel we have enough information on the picture, not just with their project, but in general about doing this, because you're 2 years past the due date and you're extending it further. And my concern is, how do you do justice to all those who want space here that you identify are on in a waiting pattern by continuing to go beyond the due date? So my request is to table it and have that discussion and then bring a date issue forward.
Thank you.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
No.
No.
The motion fails. I will now step down from the chair and move that Bonner County agree to extend the deadline for MacGyver Aviation on Lot 32 to October 1st, 2024. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There is a motion and a second. Is there deliberation on this topic?
I think before the board votes to do this, I think then the board should explain what you anticipate the response from the county be for those people waiting in line when they've already had it extended 2 years. How does the board show objectivity in how we choose how we move that line? And what could that potentially mean especially, for example, if someone were to say, the rule says 48, you've gone beyond 2 years, and then now you're tacking on more years, and I've been waiting in line, and then if I can show that that has costed me as an individual, but one person is being allowed to move, how do we objectively say we made that decision? That's what my concern is. I completely understand the project, but how do I objectively tell person A that, sorry that we've gone past the 4 years, but we're going to continue to allow the project without giving a negative view to the community? How do we make that, how do we respond to that comment from the community?
For myself, Commissioner, I'm looking at the information as presented before us today. We've had 2 different motions so far, one of which was to extend the timeline, which would be far out of the ordinary. We have heard from our airport director, who has been in that position for 15 years, who I'm going to rely on his expertise. We've heard from the lessee, who is requesting that we do so, and it appears has already invested a significant sum of money, and that we provide them the opportunity to complete the project that prior boards has done. So, and what we do not have at this time today, or are we being asked to actually address, are the concerns of other folks in line. What we are asked to do today is to address MacGyver Aviation, and that's what I'm prepared to do.
So I'm going to say that that's actually what we're being asked to do. That's part of the deliberation. And it sounds to me, if I'm a person interested in this, that the answer was, if the first person invested a significant amount of money, then the timeline doesn't matter. And how do we address that as commissioners? Because that cannot be the standard, because that is not an appropriate way to make a decision. The job that we have right now, and my question is actually extremely valid, and in fact, that's why I asked to table it, to understand the consequence of that, because we don't want to pit community people against community people. We need to make a good decision. This is already significantly beyond the time frame. So I again pose to you, since you're confident in the decision, how do you answer to the other community member in line for a spot who has already had to wait 2 years, who is now being told that more time is given to this individual, and is the answer because they invested all money already? And that's not how the county should work. And I implore you to answer that, because if you can't answer that, that means that it was reasonable to table it and have that open discussion, so that when it does come back, because it will, that we actually have the answer to give. Because the community wants, you should know what you can get from this board before you come here, because we're actually following the rules. And we are going to have unprecedented issues, and I think this is unprecedented. It hasn't happened, and it's the right thing to have the conversation, because if it's reasonable to say, go to December 31st, and we make that argument after we do a thorough discussion, then we can have the objective information. But just saying because it's being requested and they already put money in doesn't answer, how does the board respond to, it happens in all areas of the county. You have it in planning where people say it's spot zoning because we can't explain it. So I'm just asking you, how do you answer me if I'm in line waiting for that spot and it's already been 2 years and I don't get to go again?
Well, we're at looking at a 6-year deal here, and that would take you back into the COVID years when this started. And you could not order a steel building at any price during those 2 or 3 years, which threw him way behind schedule. That was one of the reasons it got hung up. I remember that. And then some infrastructure things. And it is perfectly reasonable to do the October 1st thing. And that's all I have to say on that.
But we haven't answered my question about the other
I've
community
answered-
members.
I've answered it.
The other community members are not the motion that we are addressing. What we are addressing is a deadline on MacGyver, which is the information that's presented, and that's what I'm prepared to vote on.
But that's not, you.
I understand that, Commissioner.
Every job has delays. Every business person has delays, and for whatever reason, doesn't matter what it is. So when a contractor gives you a timeline and a deadline, that's their job function. We are actually here because this impacts the community, and to say the community impact has no bearing on this decision is not correct, because it does. And I'm actually asking you very significantly, because, and I keep pushing it, because you run the risk of litigation associated to us choosing without an explanation. He already went beyond the 4 years. So the COVID comment doesn't matter. And that's actually not what we're here to adjudicate, is why someone else gave the extension. What we're looking at right now is an additional extension on this project, and my question still has not been addressed by either of you of how do we answer why we did this decision to other people who are in line, and it cannot be because they've invested a lot of money, because then we're saying the wealth of one and their ability to fund something means they get a greater time extension, and that I have a concern with from a legal perspective. And I think that you guys owe an answer if you don't want to table it for the discussion. It is okay for this meeting to go long.
We're
This is
past
the
the
business
table. We're at
meeting.
the October 1st.
This is
motion.
this is the business of Bonner County. And
I
I
agree.
implore either of you to answer that, because that's my concern.
And Commissioner, you've received an answer. Roll call vote.
No.
Yes,
Yes.
the motion carries. Our next item is Airport Item 2, Mr. Shuck,
Which is identical.
which is identical.
Would you like me to read it?
Is there anything you need to add in addition, or is it makes sense? They're adjacent.
No, there's nothing I can add.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County agree to extend this deadline to October 1st, 2024.
I second the motion to advance it for discussion.
There is a motion and a second. Deliberation amongst the board.
I have none. Same thing.
There is a need to answer the question that I asked, and it is most reasonable that the item have more discussion with the individual in question. There is no reason you can't wait to have that discussion to answer those questions.
Well, the one lot's
And
been passed, so we're not going to table the second lot.
Okay, well,
actually, there are two different issues with two different decisions, so you could.
do you have any,
Well,
please continue.
so he interrupted me, so let me finish, please. So we can make a decision to say like it's one potential legal case versus two. So we could do that. I'm not expecting anything other than what happened the first one, but my comment is, it's reasonable to do a better job on how we make this decision so that we come up with a justification for the decision that is inclusive of legal input on doing this, because this is a significant extension.
Legal has reviewed this, so it's already in there.
Yeah, and justification, we've already discussed that, and it's the right thing to do. Sometimes we have to make decisions just simply because it is the right thing to do.
Can you explain what the right thing to do means? Because that's a generic word.
I'd like to bring us,
I'm asking
and I'm
Commissioner
bringing us back to,
Commissioner Bradshaw made a comment, I'm asking
and
him
I'm
to
bringing the
clarify.
board back to what we are
It's pretty
discussing.
clear.
Excuse me, sir.
You're
ma'am.
blocking a conversation
No,
between
I'm
two
bringing us back to the
commissioners.
actual agendized item, Commissioner Williams, which is based on the information before us. Bonner County agreed to extend this deadline to October 1st, 2024 in regards to MacGyver Aviation, Lot 33. That is the agendized item. I'm not going to argue, discuss, deliberate.
That's the
debate
answer, is
on
you're not gonna
other-
deliberate, so
on
we can
items
just
that
vote.
are not in regards to this particular motion, because that's what we are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be
Commissioner
discussing
Ahmed,
this one.
that's what he did. Commissioner
roll call
Bradshaw,
vote.
Commissioner Bradshaw gave a comment, and I asked him to clarify the comment, and you're blocking the clarification.
Please continue with the vote, Madam Clerk.
No.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Our next agendized item is EMS with Chief Lindsay. Chief, are you out there? I see you on
here.
board. There we are. All right, what's going on, sir?
I'm here. Chief Jeff Lindsay, Bonner County EMS for the record. First item before you is a clinical site agreement between Providence Health Training and Bonner County EMS. This agreement will allow BCMS to host Providence Health Training students during their field internship phase, EMT and paramedic training. It will renew automatically yearly until either party terminates the agreement. This is at no cost to Bonner County EMS.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve the Idaho Cooperation Mobilization Agreement between Bonner County EMS and USFS.
Commissioner, we're on the prior one. We haven't got to item number 2. So
Bonner County EMS Program Agreement, is that not the right one?
we're on number 1.
Okay, so you'll have to read it.
Okay.
Don't have it.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, motion to approve the Providence Health Training EMS Program Agreement.
I will step down from the chair to second the motion. Is there any deliberation?
I have no questions.
I like the no-cost part.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Item number 2, Chief.
Yep, the item number 2 is a VIPR agreement between Bonner County EMS and the U.S. Forest Service to provide either basic life support or advanced life support staffed ambulances to the scene of wildland fires. Bonner County EMS will be compensated for these services.
Okay, on that one, based on the information before us, I move to approve the Idaho Cooperative Mobilization Agreement between BC EMS and USFS.
I would second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
I like the compensated even better than the free.
I agree. Hearing no further deliberation, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Chief. Our next one is a discussion decision regarding the appointment to the Bonner County Fair Board. And the Bonner County Fair Board has one member who resigned from the Fair Board. An advertisement was placed in the Bonner County Daily Bee, the Gem State Miner, and the Beacon requesting letters of interest in serving on the Fair Board. After reviewing the letters of interest submitted, the Board of County Commissioners desires to appoint Mr. Quentin Duncan to a 4-year term.
And Mr. Chairman, after reviewing the information presented before us, I move to approve Resolution 2024-30, appointing Quentin Duncan to the Bonner County Fair Board to fill a vacated position with a term ending May 6, 2028.
I second the motion to advance it for discussion.
So let's discuss.
So the board did not interview anybody. I have never seen it where we appoint someone without interview. It's not, I don't know why that would be the case, but what took place in this particular event was Commissioner Almond declared himself the liaison of the Fair Board and said he had met this individual in this.
He didn't declare himself liaison. He was appointed
Commissioner-
liaison
Commissioner
when he was
Bradshaw.
sworn into office, Ms. Williams.
Commissioner
Get your
Bradshaw.
facts straight.
So I'm making my comment, and the Fair Board did not select to use the Board of Commissioners as liaisons. They don't have to. They are different than other groups.
They
And
don't get to select their commissioner.
Commissioner Bradshaw, if you could let me finish, and you can most
Learn your
definitely.
job, Ms. Williams. Learn your
Well,
job.
let's focus. Please continue, Commissioner Williams.
So the the Fair Board did not select to have a liaison for their Fair Board. But what they did ask this board to do is, as positions come open with the fair, that we work with them instead of in opposition. One of the ways that they identified was allowing them to give some input on what the fair itself needed, because sometimes they need people that are more on the financial side of it, event planning, just in general. They weren't asking to make the decision of who takes the position. They were just asking to be welcomed at the table for that discussion. So my issue with this is not only did that not occur, but we never interviewed anybody. There were I think 4 or 5 people that put in applications. And so the only thing that happened was a decision was made because a commissioner said, I've been at the meetings, I'm a liaison, this person is going to be a good fit. I argued that at a minimum, we as a board should actually interview the people that are applying for this position. Our fair is very important to Bonner County, and making sure that board functions appropriately is important, and we don't do that by forcing things. This person could be a fantastic fit, but having not interviewed the person, it's not appropriate in my mind for the board to select someone to sit on that board, especially when you look at the contention between this board and the Fair Board. We have to do our job to improve relationships in our business, and an easy step would be just interview the next member and have that discussion with the Fair Board so that that person onboards with the Fair Board in the best possible light. You don't do, even if the person's the best person, if we disrespect people by the way we make decisions, it's unnecessarily a negative introduction. The board has been told that the Fair Board is different. They get memorandums of understandings of what their relationship is. They're not required to do something by having a liaison. They did send a letter from the president of that board, the chairman, excuse me, of not wanting that relationship because of the tensions. So we shouldn't create it. And we shouldn't set someone else for a negative interaction with a Fair Board by not interviewing them and presenting them as the best candidate. And we can't do that if we ignore what has been the historical process in Bonner County for selecting members of the board. So that's my position on it. So I'm not going to support the motion, but it isn't because I don't even know the person. I've actually never seen the person. I don't think we should not interview people and just select. And I'd like to improve relationships with the fair and this board, and this is not the way to do it, so.
So I think the historical process is something that is incredibly important for us to actually bring into account. When this vacancy came forward, the Board of County Commissioners attempted to fill it, and what happened is the Fair Board actually hired a law firm at great expense to the Bonner County Fairgrounds and the taxpayer. And here is what it said. Good afternoon, Mr. Marshall. As you may know, Smith and Malik has been retained by the Bonner County Fair Board to assist it in navigating the ongoing disputes with the Board of County Commissioners regarding authority for certain responsibilities and through a revised memorandum of understanding. We have also been retained to defend the Fair Board from the pending public records lawsuit. We are in the midst of drafting a more extensive letter to attempt to mediate the current disputes over responsibilities, and I hope to have that to you next week. In the meantime, please instruct the Board of County Commissioners to direct any communication for the Fair Board on either matter to either Tara Malik or myself. We hope to address and resolve the ongoing disputes over responsibilities quickly and as amicably as possible. Thank you. Colby K. Kaddish, attorney, Smith and Malik. So what did happen is that a board that occupies land owned by Bonner County, paid for by the Bonner County taxpayer, bought with Bonner County taxpayers' fund, hired an attorney against the membership that were elected in lawful elections and said, we aren't going to talk to you. We're going to tell you how this is going to work. And so then we were going through a legal process. And during the course of that legal process, what was actually found and discovered is that a Fair Board, according to state law, does not have standing to sue. They are appointed. They do have particular responsibilities, which is what has led this board right here, for the first time in the 97-year history of Bonner County, to spend Bonner County tax dollars and to do a complete external audit of not only the taxpayer-funded portion of fairground operations, but the operations of the fairground to include the rodeo and the fair and other things. And that comes with expense, and we're waiting upon that. And there's also the historical reality of the tragedy that occurred with our two prior fair directors. The historical process for appointing board members that the Fair Board would like is completely antithetical to the actual law or the process for any other appointed commission. It is the Board of County Commissioners' responsibility, and I will read from section 22-202. Any vacancy occurring on such county fair board shall be filled by appointment by the county commissioners at their first regular meeting after the occurrence of such a vacancy. We are months and months behind, and it was at the Fair Board's request that we fill this vacancy. There has been an awful lot of unnecessary turmoil with the Fair Board, and they have a fair coming forward. I believe that this individual will serve well. He's been volunteering for the fair for an awful long time. He has a history both as himself as someone who worked at the fair, and now he's on a second generation with his kids working at the fair. When I attend the meetings and he's talking about giving more of his time to fix the pig barns, we could not do much better than this type of individual's willingness to volunteer, serve, and give time.
So first, I'm going to clarify something because the people this is why people attend these meetings so much, is what you actually read was in response to you two voting to remove the memorandum of understanding between this board and the fair, because you made an allegation that the prosecutor's office working with the fair at no cost to the fair was a conflict of interest because you, sir, were in conflict with the fair board.
No, it was a
So
cost
then,
to the
excuse me,
taxpayer. Let's get it right.
Excuse me.
Well, let's tell the truth.
So I'm speaking and I waded through your stuff, so
Okay.
you would do decorum or whatever it is that
Okay.
you define that as and let me speak. So that's how Malik was assigned, was you removed a memorandum of understanding that this county has always had with the fair board. But what you actually have done is proven the fact that this board has a contentious relationship with that board, and we need to fix that. All of what you said about the individual can be completely true, which makes it even more important that we make sure that any introduction of a new fair board member is received in a collaborative, cooperative effort. And please don't use a sophomoric response of, I'm asking you to choose someone that they agree with. That is none of what I said. I said that input, just like the public gives input on the decisions we make, because the fair knows what it needs. The way in which you presented that actually highlights the issues that I brought forward as we make this decision. You listed a resume of an individual that I, as a board member, don't have of this individual because we did not interview the individual. And I am asking to interview the individual as we have done historically. None of the objective points that I put forward as to why we wouldn't do it this way did you address. All you addressed was they had to hire an attorney because of you. They had to hire, we are going to follow through with auditing, which has nothing to do with appointment of a fair board member. At no time am I saying it's their job to appoint a fair board member, but I am saying, why wouldn't we interview this person and present the package of a wonderful participant to the fair board reasonably so that we can help improve the relationship of this board to that board? And nothing that you said says we shouldn't. Actually, everything you said says we absolutely owe it to the individual that you have identified as a good fit to do that so that we can have a cooperative relationship, at least amongst that board. I have no idea what the fair board's position is on the individual because I don't interact in that way because, as he indicated, the fair board does have the right to say they don't, and they don't have that relationship with this board. However, I don't think it's fair to this gentleman to not be interviewed by the board and have the support moving into that position and be packaged well so that we have a cooperative relationship.
You have anything to add?
You know, I guess some people's memory don't work as good as others, but I believe we got all three applications from the three people that applied, and we looked at their resumes, or I did, and was able to make a determination by weeding through the applications as to who the best candidate for the job was. Now, if Ms. Williams chose not to read those and look at them, that would be on her, not us, nor the Fair Board. It is not the Fair Board's job to pick other Fair Board members. It is the Bonner County Board of Commissioners' job to do so. And in trying to shove that off on somebody else or ask input from somebody else, that would be like asking Ms. Schofield to recommend who we hire to work in the office, which is not her job. That would be our job in HR's. And so I believe the process has went forward. The process has been followed traditionally as it's been followed, and I see no issues with it. And I think we have picked the best candidate for the job.
I think it's an interesting parallel because what you said is actually not accurate. This
Well,
board
yeah, it's 100% accurate.
This board actually does poll other employees before they hire someone to say, do you think they'd be a good fit? Look at the way in which we hired a director of human resources. It wasn't just done, and one, they were interviewed, but it wasn't just done by reading someone's information, which the people don't submit a resume, they submit a letter of interest. So I read the letter of interest. That doesn't tell you what the fair needs and how that interaction will be. But in terms of historical practice, the both of you are actually confirming that what you're doing is exactly the opposite of everything that we do. We interview people, we get their input, and then we identify if they're a good fit. You two are saying you read a letter of interest and that's enough. I don't think it's enough. That's not what Bonner County does. We interview anybody, whether it's a volunteer, whether you're wanting to sit on a commission, whether you're wanting to be a staff member. And we do actually ask input of how do you think this person will onboard?
Thank you. Roll call vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Our next agendized item is the District 2 Commissioner Report.
All righty. So I'm going to be, IDL was super informative. Thank you for everybody that participated with that. I do have some of their information still here. This Saturday, the 11th, we have the Wire Idaho at Priest River Community Center at 10 a.m. It's open to anybody. They want to do a presentation on kind of where Bonner County sits with respect to wired versus wireless. Our commissioner chats are filled for May. On the 14th, it will be Happy Agers. On the 21st, it will be Trinity Special Needs. We have a call for a lot of people asking me about mental health and suicide prevention, especially in the West Bonner County area. So I did book suicide prevention chat for the 4th. There's also an event that takes place on June 1st. It's called the 988 Run and Relay. It is a inaugural kind of suicide prevention relay race if you want to participate. I am going to, I'm working out for Idaho Department of Transportation to participate in the latter part of the chats. So I'll post that chat link online, but I want to also inform our community that we had a wonderful chat with our veteran, Willie C., who has been a member of our community who went throughout Bonner County and Kootenai County helping veterans get services. He brought a number of veterans to our county. He did do a chat, and if you got a chance to watch that, you could see his passion and care for our community. He did pass away last week. He was very involved in our community as a veteran with his extended family in Clark Fork. So those will be tough shoes to fill for our community with a huge vacancy that will be immediately felt because he was a go-to person community-wide for our veteran services. So I will post when his service will be, but I'm going to leave it at a short District 2 report for that. I did see people are emailing me about wanting changes on public comment on each agendized item, and I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm willing to put it on the agenda, but I think that's for when you guys have agenda items, you might try reaching out to a different commissioner because it's not working out to have your items discussed on the agenda when I place it there. I did see Ms. Lunsford's request. If you want me to put it on the agenda, I will, but I would think maybe trying to get another commissioner to support hearing your issue might be necessary. So with that, that'll be all for my commissioner report.
Thank you. Our next agendized item is our public comment. Kevin, are you first? Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. Go ahead. Mr. Kevin Moore, please come forward, state your name. Brief reminder, this is a polling station, so nothing about elections.
Kevin Moore, Bonner County resident. So got several things going on again. I was hoping to get a little discussion earlier when we were talking about the Sergeant of Arms, because Mr. Kramer is not, I know he's not the only one that's questioned about that, because I've sent an email to you to try to get it on the agenda so that we could have clarification. I mean, I appreciate that we do have officers here or whatever, but I do question whatever this scenario of emergency management and sergeant of arms. I wish there could be more clarification. And so back to safety, because Mr. Omat, you questioned me last week, whatever, in the hall or in the office here about how I didn't understand how you understand safety, or we had a little back and forth about safety. And so, yeah, to me, that's a high priority. I used to be a professional firefighter. We do pre-plan so that we don't have worst-case scenarios to where loss of life or it costs the citizens exponentially more. And so I will remind us, and Mr. Bradshaw, this kind of falls in your territory, as per several years ago, Damon Allen with Idaho Department of Transportation, I'll say, give me pause or give me latitude in my description here, redid some culverts right there where we had a train derailment in Coquilala. And so there was some new culverts, or I shouldn't say new culverts, but you're familiar with the work that they did there. And it's called liquefaction of railroad bed. And so uniquely in my spot where I live, which is in Bonner County, and we all, our peer group, care about the safety of the public or whatever. And so we already have an understanding, or we have the real scenario of a derailment that happened. And so I'm trying to let my public know that there are pictures, as you said that you appreciated that I send you all these pictures. And so Kevin's not making these things up. He's documenting and sending pictures to you guys, whatever. There was a broken rail. And there's been several broken rails right across from where I live, because there's another culvert besides the one that I'm steadily dialoguing about. There's another one that goes underneath the highway right over to the railroad, to the base of the railroad. And there are like 4+ wells there because of broken rails, because of too much fluctuation in the rails. The trains go through there. You have a snap, a clear break in a rail. And it's like, that's not good. It's like, and so.
It was actually a broken wheel, but.
Well, I've talked to some people that actually worked there at the site that was a BNSF person. And so I know that was the official dialogue.
Yeah.
And so I know you have to go by that, but we don't always have to know that we're getting the truth. That things do get said to where it's more accountable or more accommodating to the
Please
public.
wrap it up.
And so, yeah, there's numerous people that have promised that they were going to redo that culvert. Mr. Bradshaw, Connolly, Bailey, Dave, McDonald. And so there's been numerous people that have proclaimed that they would fix that culvert, whatever, but it still hasn't been done. And so under the safety that you're purpose to, it's like we need to step up and do remedial action.
Thank you for your comments, Kevin. Mr. Rick Kramer.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to address this to Benjamin.
Who are you?
I'm Rick Kramer. I'm a Bonner County resident. So with regard to Mr. Cameron, you have had this man, you've asked him to confront me. And my understanding is that there is no position, official position in this county for Sergeant of Arms. If there is, I'd like to know when that transpired. Because I believe that when you asked him to confront me, and he's armed, he was just an employee. He was not a sergeant of arms. And I'm asking you again, I want you to agendize an item. I'd like you to explain his position here, and when, if there was a position created for sergeant of arms, when did that happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Mrs. Diane Welly.
Diane Welly, for the record. I am a Bonner County resident. Asia, you stated that you didn't believe people should bring to you what should be agendized, and I think that that's incorrect. I think people should continue to do that so that the people can see every week how you are thwarted and how your efforts are voted down. repeatedly. I want to thank you for your commissioner chats. They're very timely. You have a suicide prevention coming up, and I just had a family member commit suicide last night. So I want to thank you. You're always timely. Commissioner Almont, I think you've confused dictatorship with leadership.
Our next public speaker is Miss Christine Logue.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Christine Logue, and I live in Bonner County. Commissioner Almont, per Bonner County ordinance, the purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issues or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on future agenda for possible board action. I want to highlight the portion that says issues and concerns. The ordinance continues to allow the public to request items to be placed on future agendas. Today, I am here to give my public comment to address issues and concerns that I want to bring to the board's attention, as well as the public to include news outlets. There is no rule barring me from criticizing the work of elected officials. Commissioner Almont has single-handedly placed the entire county at risk. He starts each of these business meetings demanding what he calls decorum while concurrently disrespecting members of the public. We have become so used to the smirks, interruptions, that his lack of decorum is a staple of the meeting. We, the people, can't allow the smirk and interruptions to distract us from the problem that is Commissioner Almont. Litigation. Due to his decision alone, he arrested 2 members of our community in spite of recommendation from legal. We, the people of Bonner County, are being sued for $1.5 million and $750K roughly because of his decisions. We the people must pay for his legal defense. We the people who come to the county asking about the quality of roads or failing infrastructure, but are seeing our money being spent to protect the initial unilateral decision that he made. We watch Almont ignore a threat that was adjudicated by a court. We have heard him say on record that the restraining order adjudicated was Commissioner Williams' fault. We have watched him pretend to rein in Commissioner Bradshaw as he further places Bonner County in front of litigation by disparaging staff members. The newspapers don't report on this. The people should be angry. It has been said by Almont, it's much easier to spend the taxpayers' money than his own. I guess that's true. He is spending our money to defend his defenseless actions. What will the county be left with? A further failing infrastructure, poor services because of Commissioner Almont's decisions? The court threw out Almont's citizen's arrest against Bowman. Almont took to the papers who eagerly wrote
Thank you for your
his
comments,
lies
Ms. Logue.
to say that Beaumont was not in the meeting for failure to appeal. He did appeal. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Christine.
Whole bunch more, I'll come back next week.
And we'll be here next week and we will listen again.
And I was here last week.
Our next public speaker will be Mrs. Jennifer Kramer.
Good morning, Jennifer Kramer, Bonner County resident, for the record. My comments are being addressed to you, Mr. Benjamin Luke Omot. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words. I was doing some research for the upcoming election, and there's a Q&A questionnaire that was sent out by Watchman Ministry of North Idaho. And there was 2 questions on there, of which you and some other candidates answered. One was, in your opinion, if elected, who do you see yourself accountable to and why? And the other question was regarding public comment. What is your opinion on restricting public comment at county meetings, and why do you hold that opinion? So in the who do you see yourself accountable You said, I'm accountable to the law and the voters. The voters are us. If you were truly accountable to us, and I was going to also read the section of 1-200 that Christine just read, where it says, and maybe I will read it. Oops, let me find the public comment segment. The purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issues or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. If you were truly accountable to the voters, there have been numerous items that people have requested of you to put on agendas. And in going back through all of the meeting minutes, I think I found one instance where you put someone's issue, and don't smirk, issue on the agenda, and that was it. And so that's not accountable, that's not living the phrase, I'm accountable to the voters. Another thing, if you were truly accountable to the voters, is you would allow public comment on agendized items so that you can hear from us before the decisions are made. There was a lot of valid points that came up by Asia this morning relative to the Fair Board appointment. It's common sense, in my opinion, to interview people before you appoint them to a 4-year position. I think also there was a lot of valid discussion, and the public probably has comments. I know I had comments regarding the airport issues and the extension of the lease. I have 23 seconds. In that case, I think that you made the decision in a vacuum. The question on how do you explain to the other people who want to lease those lots, how do you explain your decision? And you refuse to do that, keeping it a very narrow-minded focus. And you need to consider the impacts of your decisions across the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Madam Clerk, who do we have that signed up online? Ms. Plant, are you out there?
Yes, Jonna Plant, Sagal resident. I come to almost all the commissioners' meetings, and yet when I couldn't come a couple of weeks ago to defend myself, you said, Luke, that I used the word shackled in a derogatory manner, and then used this example and misrepresented what I said to punish the crowd by limiting their comment time. In essence, shackling the public's comment. What an abuse of power and discrimination against others due to your misrepresentation of my comment. Shackled, as said in my sentence, and as described in a dictionary, means restrained, restricted, or limited. Have you not restrained, restricted, or limited any of us people in these meetings? Here's what I said. I said you want to shackle Commissioner Williams. You have shackled her to the point of not letting her do her job, along with shackling her voice by not letting her speak during meetings or as a public commenter. You attempt to stop the voice of anyone who has agreed or sided with Asia Williams. By the way, you pick and choose of who can speak during public comment and who cannot. By the way, I saw you decided to ask questions as a public commenter yourself at another meeting. Isn't that a bit hypocritical? Your trampling of people's rights and your actions will cost Bonner County millions of dollars. You constantly attempt to brag, similar to our previous county commissioners, that you're saving taxpayers' money in your position, but you fail to account and consider the thousands of dollars, if not millions, spent on lawsuits to defend your decisions and your actions. You make it impossible for our own county attorneys to defend you, since they can't clearly, you can't even listen to their legal opinion. So if you don't, they can't defend you. So we're going to have to end up getting outside counsel for you. Look, we all have screwed up in our past and we've done things wrong and we all have had to live with the consequences. But when you screw up as our county commissioner, you hurt the whole county and we are all punished for your actions and decisions. And we have to deal with the consequences of those bad decisions you make. So I really request that you reevaluate your decisions you're making, realize your decisions must be based on hatred, your narcissistic behavior, or to block a sitting county's commissioners. Because of your hatred of her and against those who at times side with her is hurting this county horribly. We need a person in the position of county commissioner who will humble themselves and be a servant of the people and will stand for the people to make decisions that are smart for Bonner County. 2 individuals, and I won't say their name because I'm not allowed to, come to the county commissioners meeting and to the planning and to the county, both, and are on Zoom or there in the last year and a half. Please vote for those people. One last thing, I would really request that the public comment form, when you put in public comment form to the search engine, it won't come up. It's hard to find, and I have to clear my history every week to try to
Thank you,
find it.
Jana. It's on the front page of the website.
Yes, as I
And,
said, the history, when you have a history,
I
it
look
doesn't.
forward to listening to you next
Yeah.
week. Our next public speaker.
Jonna,
Can you sign up?
on the sign up sheet online, I've actually had somebody has messaged me. It is on the front, but it is actually difficult to find and it doesn't populate in the search. You have to scan all the way down to the bottom, and, because it used to be that it was floating along the top of the bar and you could click on it. That did get removed, and I think people thought that's the only place it was. But when you slide all the way down to the bottom, that form is there again. So I think there was a change that didn't get announced to the public, because that fly bar disappeared from the site.
Thank you. Yes, the history is hard to clear. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mr. Dave Bowman.
Dave Bowman, Bonner County. I will start, I guess, with the removal of Commissioner Williams's items off the agenda. It's insane what you two are. I don't have words for it, but only a tyrant making decisions that cannot withstand scrutiny will use their delegated power to silence any and all opposition. And that's what the two of you do. You're tyrants. It's very cowardly what both of you do. And the two of you are by far the most disruptive people that attend these meetings. And you accuse everybody else of being disruptive. Well, not everybody, just the people that you disagree with. But the two of you, Amit, Bradshaw, disrupt these meetings 10 times over, at least, what any other one or any other 10 people have done in the years I've been attending these meetings, or the year and a half that you two have been in office. You should be ashamed of yourselves, but neither one of you has the capacity to feel any shame. I don't know if you're somewhere on the spectrum or what, but so somebody did mention that I believe it was Commissioner Williams, maybe, that at some point public comment might come back. Well, public comment will return when the two of you are gone. So folks, please, we have one that's thinks he can be the sheriff even though he can't carry a.
Dave, we are not talking about, you're done.
I'm
Technology
not talking
cut him
about
off.
election. I'm
Nope.
talking about.
That's it. Thank you.
Nope, this man.
That's it.
And
Okay.
let's get you out of office,
Technology,
Luke Ahmed.
please
The
stop
sooner the
Mr.
better.
Bowman from speaking. Is there
You're gonna-
anybody else who signed up? Ms. Crawford, please.
You know, I don't appreciate being cut off when-
Dave, I'm not, no, Dave, this is a polling location.
Oh,
We're gonna follow the rules. Technology, please. Thank you. All right, Ms. Crawford.
Reg, you out there?
Crawford, Sandpoint, Idaho. Sorry, my microphone wasn't set up.
Good morning.
Last week I spoke about a minor land division where the owner applicant was clearing his property on Rapid Lightning and removing vegetation up to the stream. And this property also has very steep slopes behind it that he has begun to clear. Neighbors were concerned about the excessive erosion and runoff from these activities. There's a large excavator on the shore there too. Last week, Commissioner Ahmet requested planning staff to attend the meeting to rebut my request to delay approval until it could be determined if the applicant had either an IDEQ construction general permit or had been certified by IDL for the Idaho Forest Practices Act, or if they had applied for a building location permit, which would create stream setbacks. Planning staff read code that said that it is not their purview that this falls under the Idaho Practices Act. Unfortunately, during this morning's chat with IDL, he was able to confirm that no, that this does not fall under them if they are doing logging on their own property and not selling the logs. So he also gave an example. He said it happens all the time. That's a quote, up at Priest Lake, where when people buy a parcel, they start clearing it up to the lake, and they get calls, and there's nothing they can do if they're not selling the timber off the land. And so what we have here is a problem where the county has absolutely no protections in place for removing vegetation up to into a waterfront before the building location permit is issued or requested. And so as part of our comprehensive plan and in the purposes of the code I read last week, our county is taxed with the prevention of erosion from construction going into our waterways. And I suggest that you ask planning department to look at this and find where we can address this and fill these gaps. The general construction permit with IDQ, by the way, doesn't get triggered until they clear over an acre of land. So please request them to address this. Thank you.
Reg, I'll do that. This morning did expose a gap that we have in protecting the streams when timber is not being sold. So I'll copy on the email to planning, and I'll copy Bill Wilson as well to see if we need to address that, because that did expose a little bit of a loophole in how we protect the streams.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who has signed up? Is there anybody, ma'am? Will you sign in, though?
Oh, sure. Rose Johnson, Bonner County resident. This matter has been previously addressed to Commissioner Bradshaw, as well as the attorney. Bonner County attorney has weighed in on it and found in favor of my husband and I in our position of fraudulent records in Bonner County, harming our property and equity when a business owner took a forced salvage manufactured home, declared it as new, used the fraudulent void documentation to file with the Bonner County records, and since that time, it has been improperly declared, illegally and legally void. It has been improperly declared real property, improperly and illegally taxed as real property, and for all financing purposes, it is now worthless. We have requested that Bonner County void Independence Home Center's previously filed, recorded, which is fraudulent documentation from the county record, and that our property be declared as personal so that it can be removed from our land. Bonner County, on February 6th this year, in response to our records request to be provided a form for filing a tort claim regarding county employees knowingly and or recklessly participating in a mortgage property recording fraud. Their response was that we had 180 days from February 6, 2024 to file a court action. There is no law that allows fraud to stand as constructive record in any in any record, because every buyer, potential seller, potential financing, potential insurance, all go to the county records for information. And if that information is fraudulent, tainted, void, It does nothing but present an absolute false record.
Please wrap up your comments, Ms. Johnson. Would
Okay.
you like to give us a copy of that so that we can put it into the record?
Absolutely. I brought all kinds of copies.
Okay, well, I just need one and we'll put it in the record.
On the attorney weighing in.
Ms. Johnson, I need you to wrap up your comments. You're
I am
past-
going to do that, and I would appreciate you giving me the respect that you demand.
Ms. Johnson, I don't think you're quite understanding. We give everybody the same.
You're wasting my time. Okay, let me
Miss-
finish.
Ms.
All right.
Johnson, please take
Our
your seat.
attorney, Scott Bauer, has researched the issue, and in light of the evidence
It's 10:33
you have provided,
and
has
we
found
Wait a
that
second, why are we going to deny
personal
people
property,
the right
Because
to
if we
speak?
don't
real
follow the
property
rules
is
according
void
to,
or
we're doing it
voidable.
wrong.
Going forward, the assessor office will consider the home to be personal property for valuation purposes, since that is what it would have been considered had the conversion not have been processed.
Mrs. Johnson, can I see what you're reading? Do you have a contact information here?
I believe,
You don't? Can you put your contact information?
And have you talked to our prosecutor's office on that?
yeah, they don't want to talk to us anymore.
Oh.
They say,
Okay.
sue us. They say,
What
sue
a-
us,
That's
which is insane.
one of my concerns is that it sounds like they've spoken with their prosecutor's office.
I asked them what rule and law they told me, I have to sue you guys in order to
Sir,
make the record true.
sir, we're commissioners. I'm going to defer
That's got
to,
the power of the purse, though. You guys can control what money they get and what they don't.
okay? Is there anybody else?
Limits.
They're not gonna do the job truthfully.
Mr. Borisov, come on up.
I'll make copies of it and then put it in the record
I brought copies.
of all three. So then
Yeah,
will
I
you
got
turn
you.
your
I know who
copy
you are.
into the
Nice
clerk
to meet
right
you.
there? That's the clerk that would receive it?
Um,
Or do you want me to make
go
a
ahead
copy
and
of
make a
this?
copy, so, because I brought additional copies of.
Is it okay if I not make a copy of this since you put your contact telephone number on it because they'll release
You're
it?
more than welcome to make copies of.
If someone
With a
asks
Y?
for your record, then your
Y.
your telephone number comes
Dimitri
out.
with a Y.
You're okay with that?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dmitry Borisov, resident of Bonner County. I would like to talk about appointment process for the Fair Board. I disagree in the way you folks handle it. I'm a chief of the volunteer ambulance agency, and if somebody would like to volunteer with our agency, even though they say they experienced CMT or a nurse, I still sit down with them, have an interview. And sometimes even my board members will join me in this interview before I will let those people join the service. So I would encourage you folks to do the same thing by appointing people, by having interviews. And the other thing is, in the past, I've spoke to you multiple times about listening our concerns and addressing them and putting them on the agenda and not to restrict the public comment, because how can we, as citizens, can hold you guys, elected officials, accountable if we cannot freely speak? I mean, I know it might sound silly, but we have a right just to stay here and just make a humming noises for 3 minutes. It's a right? Is it a productive way to spend our time? No. But when we bring our concerns and address and let you know how we see you and how we see your actions, I think that's the only way we can really keep you guys accountable. So that's why I would like to ask you not to restrict people's right to speak their mind freely. Thank you.
Yeah, take that with you.
Is there anybody
That
else?
first part would be a state legislator thing. We have to follow their rules. Yeah.
Anybody else that is in the room before I go to Mr. Kramer? Mr. Brandon Kramer online. Okay, Brandon, you got 3 minutes.
Brandon Kramer, I'm a Bonner County resident. I wasn't going to say anything today, but I felt inclined to do so after observing your interaction, Chairman Omat, with Dave Bowman, and then subsequently interaction with the woman who was just speaking about her private property as a trailer. And that is your outbursts and your inability to control your emotions are causing us, the taxpayers, significant funds. They cost us money. And what you just did to Dave Bowman is you again violated his First Amendment rights because the ordinance that you want to tout all the time is around the word derogatory. And the word derogatory is subjective. It's demonstrably subjective. And so it's unconstitutional on its face and it's unconstitutional in practice. And I had asked at some point in time for the county to revisit that ordinance, that policy specifically around the derogatory comments, and you have refused to do so. And I am certain that Dave Bowman will amend his complaint to include the actions that you had today for further violating his rights. So I would implore you, since you're going to be here for at least through the remainder of this year, Chairman Omat, to act like an adult and to curtail your emotional outbursts. Although you may not like what someone has to say, and you may find it derogatory, the ordinance on its face is unconstitutional. And you can go ask Lewis what that means if you're unsure about it. And I know that you sometimes listen to them, sometimes you don't listen to them, but they will very clearly articulate to you, Lewis or Bill, as to what that actually means. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Technology. I'm going to respond to that one. The reason why Mr. Bowman was cut off is because we were following the guidance given to us by the clerk. Now, when he clearly was derogatory and referenced our mental state, let it go. But when you start electioneering after the clerk of the courts tells us that this is an active polling place, that is the reason why the comments were cut off, is because we are complying with state law. I will bring forward again that I have repeatedly stated, this is not an open forum. This is a limited public forum. I have been in contact with our council. They do say that we need to update our ordinance, but our ordinance as it stands is legal whether people like it or not. Mr. Davis.
I think I'm going to give a comment on this because the problem isn't actually even the inherent issues with the ordinance that need to be updated. It's that you're picking and choosing which parts of the ordinance to use that best suit you, which creates the problem that exists in this meeting every Tuesday. You choose to focus on the part to say limited, but you forget the part that says the public has a right to bring their issues, their concerns, and to also request items to be placed on the agenda. And every Tuesday, we are hearing what the ordinance says, but only some of us have to abide by what the ordinance. And with respect to Mr. Bowman or anybody else that mentions something specific to an election, we don't have to shut them completely down, but we can say, I'm going to pause you. Can you please stop? The way you responded was shut it off and you kicked him out of the room, which I also have a problem with the kicking someone out of Zoom, because we can address people's issues without going to the extreme of what took place. And you didn't give that opportunity at all. And part of the reason people are talking about it is because of, for you, you tell us about decorum, yet the whole time the public speaks, you're smirking at them. You chose who to say, hey, can you wrap it up? But yet when this lady was clearly reading something, you could have offered her that opportunity, yet you both have interrupted people and you didn't credit them back the time. We have 20 minutes until 11 o'clock executive session. You said that if there was time, people could speak. So why not just let them speak instead of having us look the way we look for another Tuesday when we could just let them speak and not be interrupted? There's a lady here who didn't get to finish what she wrote. She should be able to come up and speak.
Thank you for that perspective. We're going to continue with public comment.
Thank you
Mr.
for
Ross
demonstrating
Davis.
the problem of this meeting in public comment.
Good morning. My name is Ross Davis, a Bonner County resident. I'm representing a group of residents in the Beetlewood neighborhood, just north of the fairgrounds, off North Boyer. So recently there was a lot that was, it doesn't have an address right now. It's facing North Boyer. It's between Beetlewood Drive and Beetlewood Lane. It was zoned as residential property, and it was recently purchased by a church who plans to build a church on that property utilizing a CUP. They've not applied for any permits so far, and they've started mapping out everything as far as utilities and all that, and trying to get everything as prepared as possible so they can, it appears that they're trying to rush it through the county system to give us as little time as possible to react to it. The church size is 350 members, so it's be a good size building. At the north end of the lot is a protected wetlands per Panhandle Health, and it actually leaves a very small buildable property. The adjacent property owned by Bob LaGrace, his section there is connected to the wetlands with Beetlewood Drive, splitting it with a drainage underneath. And he is not allowed to build on his property per Panhandle Health for 50 years. And from what it sounds like, the church is planning to backfill the wetland area on their property in order to accommodate the parking lot. So our biggest concern is, how is the parking lot going to affect the stormwater, the snow melt off, and how is the septic system going to affect Sand Creek, and the traffic impact through our neighborhood, and all the Schweitzer and Fairground traffic along North Boyer. It's affected the wildlife. They've already cut down probably 30 mature cedar trees on the property. And we've reached out to the church, and they've been unresponsive for the last 6 weeks. One of the people in our group has received a threatening phone call from one of the members of the church, asking her to stop making a ruckus about it.
Mr. Davis, you need to wrap up your comments, sir.
Thank you. So I don't think that the neighborhood is against having a church there. I think the biggest concern is what's going to happen to the wetlands. And we think that they're not acting in good faith as far as.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Too fast. Thanks.
We haven't seen that file, and I think I can't even respond to.
I think it's in the city of Sandpoint, isn't it?
It's just outside the city of Sandpoint.
It's right on the line
Yeah,
there.
we're a couple blocks away from the city limits.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else online? It's 10:46.
Well, before we end, Christine, did you want to finish your comment instead of coming back next week since we have more time?
Is
there a reason?
That's not how this works.
Actually, I'm going to.
It's 10:46
Before you
and
do
this
that,
meeting is recessed until 11.
Commissioner Ahmet, last time you said if there's time left available before